I was the king of South Central. Until my own blood sold me out. A true confession by Andre Blueface Dre Williams. Told from inside a federal penitentiary. They say every king has a beginning. Mine started in a roach-infested apartment on 60th Street, South Central Los Angeles, where gunshots were the neighborhood alarm clock, and survival was the only lesson that mattered. My name is Andre Williams. But on these streets I was known as Blueface Dre, and for nearly a decade I was untouchable. I'm telling you this story now because I got nothing left to lose. Life without parole does that to a man. Strips away the lies, the image, the fake loyalty. All that's left is the truth. And the truth is ugly as hell. The beginning. I was born in 1985, right in the heart of South Central. My mom's worked 2 jobs, one at a laundromat on Crenshaw, another cleaning offices downtown. My pops? Never knew him. He got locked up when I was 2 for armed robbery, got out when I was 7, then got killed 3 months later in a drive-by. I don't even remember his face. Growing up, we had nothing. I mean, nothing. There were nights my little sister Keisha and I split a pack of ramen because that's all we had. Moms would tell us she already ate, but I knew she was lying. I could see it in her eyes. That hollow look, that exhaustion that never went away. By the time I was 12, I was tired of being hungry. Tired of wearing the same 3 shirts to school. Tired of watching my moms break her back for minimum wage while landlords threatened to kick us out every other month. That's when I met Big Zoe. Meeting the set Zoe was a legend on 60th. Everyone knew him. He was in his mid-20s, drove a clean 64 Impala, always had cash, always had respect. He was a shot caller for the Rollin 60s neighborhood Crips, one of the biggest sets in LA. I'll never forget the first time he really noticed me. I was walking home from school and some Hoover kids tried to jump me near the corner store. They were talking shit, pushing me, about to stomp me out. Then Zoe pulled up. "Aye, what the fuck y'all doing?" His voice wasn't loud. Didn't need to be. Those kids froze. One of them mumbled something and Zoe just stared at him. That stare was enough. They bounced. Zoe looked at me. "You good, lil homie?" I nodded, trying not to look shook even though my heart was pounding. "What's your name?" "Andre." "You from round here?" "Yeah, 60th and Denker." He nodded slowly, sizing me up. "You got heart. I saw you wasn't backing down. That's rare these days." He handed me a $20 bill. "Get yourself something to eat. And if anybody fuck with you again, you let me know." That 20 meant more to me than any birthday present I ever got. But more than the money, it was the respect. Someone saw me. Someone valued me. From that day on, I started hanging around the block more. Watching. Learning. I saw how Zoe moved, how people treated him, how money flowed through his hands like water. And I wanted that. Not just the money, the power. The ability to walk down my own street without fear. The initiation. By 14, I was running errands for the set. Small stuff at first, delivering messages, watching corners, holding bags for older homies. I proved I could be trusted. I kept my mouth shut, showed up when I was supposed to, and never asked questions. Then one night, Zoe called me over to his spot. There were about 8 other homies there, all older than me, all real members. The room smelled like weed and Hennessy. "Lil Dre," Zoe said. "You been around for a minute now. You solid. You want to put in work for the 6 Neo?" I knew what he was asking. This wasn't just about running errands anymore. This was about becoming part of something bigger, something permanent. "Yeah," I said without hesitation. "You ready to get jumped in?" I nodded. What happened next was the longest 60 seconds of my life. 8 grown men beating the shit out of me while I tried to stay on my feet, throwing punches back, refusing to fall. My nose broke. My ribs felt like they cracked. Blood poured from my mouth. But I didn't quit. When it was over, I was on my knees, barely able to breathe. Zoe walked over and pulled me up. "Welcome to the Rollin 60s, Blueface Dre." That's when I got my name. My face was so swollen and bruised it looked blue under the streetlights. The name stuck. That night, bleeding and broken, I felt more alive than I ever had. I wasn't just Andre from 60th Street anymore. I was somebody. The hustle. Once I was in, everything changed. I wasn't just watching anymore, I was part of the machine. At 15, I started slinging dope on the corner of 60th and Western, crack rocks 20s and 50s. The money came fast. Real fast. In 1 week, I made more than my mom's made in 2 months. I started buying clothes, Jordans, locks, gold chains. I gave my mom's money for rent and told her I got a job at a warehouse. She didn't ask questions. She couldn't afford to. But it wasn't just about the money, it was about respect. When I walked down the block, people nodded. Little kids looked up to me. Girls smiled. Rivals crossed the street. I was becoming someone. By 16, I wasn't just slinging, I was moving weight. Zoe saw something in me. He said I was smart, that I didn't panic, that I thought before I acted. He started teaching me the game, how to cut product, how to manage corners, how to spot undercovers, how to keep younger homies in line. And I soaked it all in like a sponge. The first body. But the streets don't love you for free. They demand payment, and mine came when I was 17. We had beef with a blood set from the west side. They shot up one of our spots, killed a homie named Tiny. Zoe wanted retaliation. Fast. He pulled me aside one night. Dre, you ready to put in real work? I knew what he meant. This wasn't about slinging dope or throwing hands. This was about blood. Yeah, I said. My voice didn't shake. It should have. 2 nights later, I was in the back seat of a stolen Honda with 2 other homies, a .38 revolver in my lap. We rolled up on a corner where the Bloods hung out. I saw a dude in a red rag, laughing with his boys, not paying attention. That's him, the driver said. That's the nigga who shot Tiny. Everything after that happened in slow motion. The window rolled down, my hand raised. The gun felt heavier than I expected. I squeezed the trigger. Pop, pop, pop. The dude dropped. His homies scattered. We sped off. I didn't sleep for 3 days. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face. But on the block, I was a hero. Zoe embraced me, said I was a real soldier now. The homies showed me love. That's when I realized, in this life, murder makes you a legend. And I wanted to be legendary. Climbing the ladder. Over the next few years, I became one of Zoe's most trusted soldiers. I ran operations, managed younger homies, collected debts, handled problems. Was smart, ruthless, and loyal. By 21, I was practically Zoe's right hand. Then Zoe got locked up on a federal RICO case. Life sentence, no parole. Before he went in, he called me to the county jail for a visit. Dre, he said through the glass. The set needs a leader. Someone the homies trust. Someone who can keep the money flowing and the feds off our backs. He leaned forward. That's you, bro. You ready? I didn't hesitate. I'm ready. And just like that, at 22 years old, I became one of the most powerful men in South Central. Blueface Dre wasn't just a name anymore. It was a brand, a legend. And for the next 5 years, I was untouchable. Or so I thought. People think power is about guns and drugs. It ain't. It's about fear and respect, and knowing when to use both. By the time I was 23, I controlled 4 blocks in South Central, 60th to 63rd, Western to Normandy. That was my kingdom. Every corner, every trap house, every dollar that moved. Through those streets, it all came through me. I had about 30 soldiers under me, young, hungry, loyal, or at least I thought they were. I had lieutenants who ran day-to-day operations, enforcers who handled problems, and runners who kept the product moving. It was a machine, and I was the engine. The money was insane. On a good week, we'd pull in 70, 80,000 cash. I'm talking stacks of 20s, 50s, hundreds rubber banded and stuffed in duffel bags. We moved coke, crack, weed, pills. Whatever people wanted, we had it. The lifestyle. With that kind of money came a lifestyle most people only see in movies. I had 3 apartments under fake names. One on Crenshaw where I actually stayed, one in Inglewood for my girl Simone, and one near USC where I kept cash and guns stashed. I drove a blacked-out Chevy Tahoe with tinted windows and a .45 under the seat. I wore custom diamond chains with a 6 Nero pendant, Gucci belts, designer everything. But here's the thing. People don't understand. I wasn't flashy for the fun of it. In the streets, image is everything. You gotta look like money to make money. You gotta look untouchable so people don't test you. And they didn't. I threw parties at rented mansions in the hills, invited rappers, athletes, Instagram models, open bar, catered food, security at the doors. I wanted everyone to know Blueface Dre was that nigga. But I also took care of the hood. I paid rent for old ladies who couldn't afford it, bought school supplies for kids in the neighborhood, gave out turkeys on Thanksgiving, toys on Christmas. People loved me for that. To them, I wasn't just a gangster. I was a street Robin Hood. That love kept me protected. Snitches don't last long when the whole block got your back. The cousin. My cousin Marcus, Lil Mar, had been down with the set since we were teenagers. We jumped in together, ran the streets together, made money together. He was family, blood. I trusted him more than anybody. Mari was different from me, though. I was calculated, patient. He was reckless, emotional. He loved the flash, the attention, the clout. He'd post stacks of cash on Instagram, throw gang signs in pictures, talk reckless in DMs. I told him 100 times, "Bro, you moving too loud. The feds watch everything now. Chill out." He'd laugh it off. "Man, fuck the feds. They ain't worried about us." But I knew better. I'd seen too many homies go down because they got sloppy. So I kept my circle tight. My phone clean, my movements quiet. Mar didn't listen. The money printer. Our main operation was simple but effective. We had a connect in Mexico who supplied us with pure coke at a good price. We'd cut it, cook it into crack, and distribute it through our network of corner boys and trap houses. The money flowed like a river. But with success came attention. Other sets wanted a piece. Rival Crips sets like the 83 Gangsters and the Hoovers started testing us, pushing into our territory. Blood sets from the west side wanted revenge for old beefs. And then there were the cops. LAPD gang units harassed us constantly. They'd roll up, search us, take our cash, and let us go. They knew what we were doing, but they couldn't prove it. We were careful. No phones, no paper trails, no sloppy mistakes. At least, that's what I thought. The first cracks. It started small. One of our trap houses got raided. The cops found 10 kilos of coke and arrested 3 of my soldiers. I wasn't worried. They were solid. They wouldn't talk. Then another spot got hit. Then another. I called a meeting with my top guys at a warehouse we used for storage. About 12 of us, all trusted homies. "Somebody's talking," I said. "We getting hit too often. This ain't coincidence." Everyone looked around, paranoid. Nobody wanted to believe we had a snitch. But the math didn't lie. One of my lieutenants, a dude named C-Bone, spoke up. "Maybe it's the cops just doing their job. Maybe we just hot right now." "Nah," I said. They knew exactly where to hit. They knew the addresses, the times, the amounts. Somebody fed them info. The room went quiet. "We need to tighten up," I continued. "No more phones? No more talking in cars? No more posting shit online. We go dark until we figure this out." Everyone agreed. But the damage was already done. The arrest. 2 weeks later, Marcus got pulled over in Compton. Routine traffic stop, expired tags. When the cops ran his name, they found a warrant for an old gun. Charge. They arrested him, searched the car, and found 2 kilos of coke in the trunk. I found out through a text from one of the homies. "Yo, they got Mar. Caught him dirty." My stomach dropped. I called my lawyer immediately, told him to get down to the station. I wanted Mar out on bail ASAP. But the lawyer called me back an hour later with bad news. "Dre, it's federal. DEA picked up the case. He's looking at 20, maybe 40 years if he doesn't cooperate." "Cooperate? Fuck you mean?" "I mean they're gonna offer him a deal. And with that much weight, he's got a tough decision to make." I hung up and stared at the wall. Mar was my blood, my cousin, my brother. We came up together. He wouldn't flip. Right? The phone call. 3 days later, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I answered. "Dre, it's me." It was Marcus. His voice sounded off, shaky. "Mar, what's good? You straight?" "Yeah, I'm at county. Listen, bro, they offering me a deal." My blood went cold. "A deal?" "Yeah. They saying if I cooperate, they'll cut my time. Otherwise, I'm looking at life." I tried to stay calm. "Mar, you know the rules. You know what happens to rats. You family, bro. I'll get you the best lawyer. I'll handle this. Just sit tight." There was a long pause. "I don't know if I can do life, Dre. I got a daughter. I'm only 25. You won't do life. Trust me. Just don't say shit. Don't sign shit. Let me handle it." "Aight," he said quietly. "Aight." But I could hear it in his voice. He was scared. And scared men do weak shit. The party. A week later, I threw a party at a mansion in the Hollywood Hills. I needed to blow off steam, show the streets I was still on top, still untouchable. The place was packed. Bottles everywhere, music thumping, beautiful women dancing. My homies were there, my girl Simone was on my arm, everything looked perfect. But in the back of my mind, I couldn't stop thinking about Marcus. I pulled one of my top guys, a dude named K-Lock, to the side. "You heard anything from Mar?" K-Lock shook his head. "Nah, he been quiet, real quiet." You think he'd flip? K-Lock hesitated. Man, I don't want to believe it. But dude's facing life. And you know how the feds operate. They got ways of breaking people. I clenched my jaw. He's blood, bro. He wouldn't do that to me. K-Lock just looked at me. I hope you're right, Dre. I really do. But deep down, I wasn't sure anymore. The unraveling begins. Over the next few months, things got worse. More raids. More arrests. Homies I'd known for years started getting scooped up. The feds weren't just hitting trap houses anymore. They were arresting lieutenants, enforcers, people close to me. And every arrest felt surgical. Like they knew exactly who to grab. I moved apartments, changed phones, stopped seeing Simone. I was paranoid, constantly looking over my shoulder. One night, K-Lock called me, his voice panicked. Dre, they got Big Tiny, and word is he's cooperating. Cooperating? Tiny? Nah, that don't sound right. I'm telling you, bro, somebody said he cut a deal. I hung up and sat in the dark, my mind racing. If Tiny flipped, if Marcus flipped, how many others? How deep did this go? The loyalty test. I decided to set a trap. I told only 3 people, K-Lock, C-Bone, and Marcus, through a message passed in jail, about a fake drop happening at a warehouse in Carson. I gave each one slightly different details. Different times, different amounts. If the feds showed up, I'd know who talked. 2 days later, the warehouse got raided. The time matched what I told Marcus. My heart shattered. My own blood. My cousin. My brother. He sold me out. I didn't want to believe it. Even after the warehouse raid. Even after the pattern became clear. Even after K-Lock and C-Bone told me what they'd heard on the streets. I didn't want to believe Marcus would do that to me. But the evidence was undeniable. Every bust, every arrest, every raid, it all traced back to information only a few people had. And Marcus had access to all of it. From inside county jail, he'd been feeding the feds everything. Addresses, names, phone numbers, schedules, stash spots, the whole operation. He was wearing a wire during visits, recording phone calls, writing detailed reports. My own flesh and blood was dismantling my empire piece by piece. Confirmation K-Lock came to me with the final proof. We met in a parking lot in Gardena late at night. He looked shaken. Dre, I got something you need to see. He handed me his phone. On the screen was a scanned court document, a federal cooperation agreement. Marcus's name was right there in black and white, along with his signature. I read the words but couldn't process them. The defendant agrees to provide truthful information regarding criminal activities of the Rollin 60s neighborhood Crips, including but not limited to drug trafficking, racketeering, and violent crimes committed by Andre Blueface Dre Williams and associated members. My hands started shaking. Where'd you get this? A homie who works at the courthouse. Pulled it from the system. I handed the phone back and just sat there, staring at nothing. What you want to do? K-Lock asked quietly. I didn't answer right away. I was thinking about all the years Marcus and I spent together, running the streets as kids, jumping in together, building this thing from the ground up, and now he was tearing it all down. I need to think, I finally said. But deep down, I already knew what had to happen. In the streets, there's only one punishment for snitching. Death. The hunt word spread fast that Marcus was cooperating, and in gang culture that makes you the most hated person alive. Rats don't just betray one person, they betray the whole set, the whole code, everything we stand for. The homies wanted blood. C-Bone came to me. Dre, we gotta handle this. Mars still in county. We got people inside. We can get to him. I thought about it. A part of me. The part that remembered growing up with Marcus. That remembered us as kids dreaming about getting out of poverty. Didn't want him dead. But the other part of me. The part that had built an empire. The part that understood the streets. Knew there was no other choice. Do it, I said. 2 days later, Marcus got stabbed in the showers at county jail. Multiple wounds to the chest and neck. The homies inside handled it quick. But he didn't die. He survived. And because of the attack, the feds moved him into protective custody, then into witness protection. He was untouchable now, and that made everything worse. The fallout. With Marcus in protective custody, the feds accelerated their case. They had his testimony, his recordings, his written statements. They had enough to indict not just me, but 20 other members of the set. One by one, they started picking us off. K-Lock got arrested at his baby mama's house. C-Bone got snatched at a traffic light. My lieutenants, my enforcers, my soldiers, all of them started falling. I knew I was next. I thought about running. Mexico maybe. Or Atlanta. Somewhere I could blend in, start over. But I knew that was a fantasy. The feds don't give up. And once you're on their radar, there's nowhere to hide. Still, I tried to move smart. I stayed off the grid, bounced between safe houses, cut off contact with almost everyone. I kept a go bag ready. Cash, fake IDs, a burner phone, a pistol. But I could feel the walls closing in. Paranoia. The worst part wasn't the raids or the arrests. It was the paranoia. I didn't know who to trust anymore. If Marcus could flip, anyone could. Every phone call felt like a setup. Every meeting felt like a trap. I started seeing cops everywhere, even when they weren't there. I stopped sleeping. I'd lie awake at night, gun on my chest, jumping at every sound. My girl Simone left me. She said I'd changed, that I was different, that she didn't feel safe around me anymore. She was right. I wasn't the same person. The streets had turned me into something else, something paranoid, violent, hollow. I tried to hold the operation together, but it was falling apart. With so many soldiers locked up, we couldn't move product like we used to. Corners were empty, money dried up, rival sets started pushing into our territory, sensing weakness. The empire I'd built was crumbling, and I was powerless to stop it. The last meeting. 3 weeks before my arrest, I called a meeting with the few homies I still trusted. 5 of us met at a warehouse in South LA. The mood was heavy. Everyone knew what was coming. "They gonna come for me soon," I said. "And when they do, y'all gotta hold it down. Don't fold, don't take deals, don't be like Mar." One of the younger homies, a kid named Lil J, spoke up. "What if they offer us time, though?" "I can't do life, Dre." I looked at him hard. "Then you shouldn't be in this life. You knew the risks when you got jumped in." He looked down, softened a bit. "Look, I know it's hard. I know the system's designed to break us. But if we all flip, if we all snitch, then what do we stand for? We just become what they want us to be. Rats, cowards, nothing." K-Lock nodded. "Dre's right. We gotta stay solid." But I could see it in their eyes. They were scared. And scared men make desperate choices. I left that meeting knowing I was alone. The calm before the storm. The last few weeks of freedom were strange. I knew the end was coming, but I didn't know when. I spent time with my moms. Didn't tell her what was happening. But I think she knew. She kept asking if I was okay, if I was in trouble. I'd lie and say everything was fine. One night she looked at me with tears in her eyes. "Andre, I don't know what you out there doing. And maybe I don't want to know. But you still my baby. And I love you. No matter what." I hugged her tight. "I love you too, Ma." That was the last time I saw her as a free man. The surveillance. I didn't know it at the time, but the feds had been watching me for months. They had surveillance teams following me. Cameras on the trap houses, wiretaps on phones, informants feeding them real-time updates. They knew where I lived, where I slept, who I met with, what I drove. They were building an airtight case, waiting for the right moment to move. And on a rainy night in November, that moment came. The knock. I was at my apartment in Crenshaw. It was late, around 2 a.m. I'd just gotten in, still wearing my chain and my Gucci jacket. I heard helicopters overhead. At first I thought it was just regular LAPD patrol. But then I heard the sirens. Lots of sirens. I looked out the window and saw them. Black SUVs, armored vehicles, agents in DEA jackets swarming the building. My heart dropped. They're here. I ran to the bedroom, grabbed the go bag, reached for my pistol. Then I stopped. There was no point. I couldn't shoot my way out of this. There were dozens of them. If I fired, I'd die right there. So I set the gun down, walked to the front door, and waited. The knock came hard and loud. "Federal agents, open the door!" I took a deep breath, opened the door, and saw 20 agents with guns drawn. "Andre Williams, you're under arrest." They threw me to the ground, cuffed me, read me my rights. My chain was pressed into the floor, the 6 Nero pendant reflecting the flashing red and blue lights outside. As they walked me out of the building, I saw my neighbors, watching from their windows. Some looked shocked. Some looked sad. Some looked like they knew this day was coming. I was shoved into the back of a black SUV, and as we drove away, I looked back at the building, my block, my kingdom. And I knew I'd never see it again. The ride to the federal building was silent except for the hum of the engine and the occasional crackle of the radio. I sat in the back of the SUV, cuffed, staring out the window at the streets I used to own. South. Central looked different now. Smaller. Darker. Or maybe I was just seeing it clearly for the first time. The agents didn't say much to me. They didn't need to. They had me. After months, maybe years, of surveillance, wiretaps, informants, and Marcus's testimony, they had everything they needed. I wasn't just another gangster getting arrested. I was the target of a major federal RICO case, a case that would dismantle the Rollin 60s neighborhood Crips from the inside out, and I was the centerpiece. The interrogation. They took me to a cold, windowless room in the federal building downtown. 2 agents sat across from me, a white guy in his 40s, clean-cut, and a black woman in her 30s, sharp and no nonsense. The white agent spoke first. "Andre, I'm Agent Carson. This is Agent Mitchell. You know why you're here?" I didn't respond. My lawyer had taught me one rule. Don't say shit. Agent Mitchell leaned forward. "We've been watching you for a long time, Andre. We know everything. The drug trafficking, the murders, the extortion. We have Marcus's testimony, we have recordings, we have surveillance footage. This case is airtight." I stayed silent. Agent Carson slid a folder across the table. "These are the charges: racketeering, conspiracy to distribute narcotics, money laundering, witness tampering, attempted murder. You're looking at life without parole." He paused, letting that sink in. "But it doesn't have to be that way. You're a smart guy, Andre. You know how this works. You cooperate, give us names, help us take down the rest of the organization. We can talk to the prosecutor. Maybe get you a deal." I looked him dead in the eye. "I want my lawyer." Agent Mitchell sighed. "You're making a mistake." "Then I'll make it." They left the room. The reality sets in. I was transferred to the Metropolitan Detention Center, a federal holding facility in downtown LA. My cell was 6 by 8 feet, a metal bunk, a steel toilet, a small sink. The walls were gray. Concrete. The air was stale and the lights never fully turned off. I lay on that bunk and stared at the ceiling, replaying everything in my mind. How did it come to this? I thought about my mom's, working 2 jobs to keep us afloat. I thought about Keisha, my little sister, who I hadn't seen in years because I was too deep in the streets. I thought about Zoe, rotting in a federal pen for life. And I thought about Marcus, my cousin, my blood, the rat who destroyed everything. Part of me hated him. Part of me understood him. He was scared. He didn't want to die in prison. And the feds are experts at breaking people. They offer you a way out, they make it seem reasonable, they convince you that everyone else is snitching anyway, so why shouldn't you? But another part of me couldn't forgive him. Because loyalty is all we had in the streets. It's the only code that mattered. And he broke it. The arraignment. 2 days later, I was taken to court for my arraignment. I was dressed in an orange jumpsuit, shackled at the wrists and ankles, surrounded by U.S. Marshals. The courtroom was packed. Feds, journalists, family members of victims, and a few of my homies who showed up to support me. The judge read the charges. There were 12 counts in total. Each one carried decades in prison. When he got to the end, he asked, "How do you plead?" My lawyer stood. "Not guilty, Your Honor." The prosecutor, a sharp-looking woman in her 50s, immediately requested that I be held without bail. She argued that I was a flight risk, a danger to the community, and a threat to witnesses. My lawyer fought back, but it didn't matter. The judge denied bail. I was going to sit in that cell until trial. The offer. A few weeks later, the prosecutor made an offer. My lawyer came to see me at MDC. He sat across from me in the visitation room, looking exhausted. "They're offering you a deal, Dre." I leaned back. "What kind of deal?" 25 years. You'd have to plead guilty to racketeering. And conspiracy. You'd have to allocute, admit everything in open court, and you'd have to cooperate. Cooperate? Testify, give up names, help them build cases against other members of the set. I laughed bitterly. So they want me to be Marcus. They want you to save your life. If you go to trial and lose, you're getting life without parole. This way you'd be out in your 50s, you'd still have a chance. I stared at him. 25 years. That was a lifetime. But life without parole? That was death. What if I win at trial? My lawyer sighed. Dre, I'm not gonna lie to you. The case they have is strong. Marcus's testimony alone is damaging. Add in the surveillance, the wiretaps, the informants. It's gonna be tough. So you're saying I should snitch. I'm saying you should think about your future, about your family, about what's really worth fighting for. I told him I'd think about it. But in my heart, I already knew my answer. I wasn't going to be a rat. I'd rather die in prison than live as a snitch. The Betrayals. While I sat in MDC, more homies started flipping. K-Lock took a deal. So did C-Bone. So did Lil J. One by one, the guys I thought were solid, the guys who swore they'd never talk, started cooperating. I couldn't blame them. The feds are ruthless. They threaten you with life. They show you pictures of your kids. They make you believe that everyone else is already talking, so you might as well save yourself. And most people break. I sat in my cell, reading the legal paperwork, seeing name after name of homies who'd taken deals. Guys I grew up with. Guys I trusted. Guys who'd sworn on everything that they'd never fold. All of them folded. The prosecutor had built a case so strong that even if I went to trial, I'd be walking into a firing squad. They had recordings of me talking about drug deals. They had surveillance footage of me at trap houses. They had testimony from a dozen cooperating witnesses, including Marcus. My lawyer came back a week later. Dre, they're pulling the 25-year offer off the table. Now they're saying 30 if you cooperate, or you go to trial and face life. Then I guess I'm going to trial. He looked at me like I was crazy. You understand what that means, right? You're gonna lose, and you're gonna die in prison. I understand. Why? Why throw your life away for a code that nobody else is following? I thought about that question for a long time. Why? Because if I flipped, I'd be admitting that everything I believed in was a lie. The loyalty, the respect, the code. If I betrayed that, then what was it all for? What did all those years mean? I'd rather die as a man who stood for something than live as a coward who stood for nothing. Tell them no deal, I said. My lawyer shook his head and left. The trial. The trial lasted 6 weeks. The courtroom was packed every day. Prosecutors presented a mountain of evidence: wiretaps, surveillance photos, financial records, testimony from cooperating witnesses. Marcus testified for 3 days. I sat there in a suit, watching my own cousin describe in detail everything we'd done together. The drug deals, the murders, the money. He didn't look at me once. Not a single time. When it was over, when he stepped down from the witness stand, I felt nothing. No anger, no hatred. Just emptiness. The defense did what they could. My lawyer tried to poke holes in the testimony, tried to discredit the cooperating witnesses, tried to argue that I was being scapegoated. But the evidence was overwhelming. On the final day, after closing arguments, the jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they came back, the foreman stood and read the verdict. On count 1, racketeering, we find the defendant guilty. On count 2, conspiracy to distribute narcotics, we find the defendant guilty. On count 3, money laundering, we find the defendant guilty. Guilty, guilty, guilty. All 12 counts. The judge scheduled sentencing for 3 months later. The sentencing day was cold and gray. I was brought into the courtroom in shackles. My mom's was there, sitting in the front row, crying. Keisha sat next to her, holding her hand. The prosecutor stood and gave a speech about how I was a menace to society, how I'd poisoned communities with drugs, how I'd ordered murders, how I deserved the maximum penalty. My lawyer gave a speech about how I grew up in poverty, how the system failed me, how I was a product of my environment. Then the judge asked if I wanted to say anything. I stood up, my chains rattling. I don't got much to say. I did what I did. I made choices. Some of them were wrong, but I ain't gonna stand here and beg for mercy. I am who I am. I looked at my mom's. I'm sorry, Ma, for everything. Then I sat down. The judge looked at me for a long moment. Mr. Williams, you have been convicted of serious crimes that caused immeasurable harm to your community. You showed no remorse during this trial, and you refused to cooperate with the government. Taking all of this into consideration, I sentence you to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The gavel came down. Life. No parole. I'd die in a cage. My mom's collapsed in tears. Keisha held her. The marshals came and took me away. As I walked out of that courtroom, I looked back one last time at the free world. Then the door closed. And that was it. The aftermath, I was transferred to USP Victorville, a maximum security federal penitentiary in the California desert. My cell is 6 by 9 feet. Concrete walls, a metal bunk, a steel toilet. I'm locked down 23 hours a day. 1 hour for recreation in a cage outside. This is my life now. Forever. I'm 33 years old. I'll die here. Maybe when I'm 60, maybe when I'm 80. But I'll die here. In prison, I've had a lot of time to think. About the choices I made. About the people I hurt. About the lives I destroyed. Including my own. I think about Marcus a lot. He got 10 years for cooperating. He'll be out when he's 35. He'll have a life. K-Lock got 12. C-Bone got 15. Lil J got 8. All of them will walk free eventually, and I'll still be here. Sometimes I wonder if I made the right choice. If I should have taken the deal, if I should have cooperated. But then I remember who I am. Blueface Dre. A man who stood for something even when everyone else fell. Maybe that makes me a fool. Maybe that makes me stubborn. Maybe that makes me a dinosaur clinging to a code that doesn't exist anymore. But it makes me, me. The lesson. If you're reading this, if you're listening to this, I want you to understand something. The streets are a lie. The money, the power, the respect, it's all temporary. It's smoke. It's nothing. I thought I was building an empire. I thought I was someone important. But in the end, I was just another young black man from the hood who got chewed up and spit out by a system designed to destroy us. And the people I trusted most, my own blood, betrayed me. That's the real lesson. Loyalty doesn't exist. Not really. When people are facing life in prison, when the feds put pressure on them, when they see a way out, they take it. And I don't even blame them anymore. I blame the game itself. The game that tells young boys that selling drugs is the only way to eat. The game that tells us that violence is strength. The game that puts us in a cage and throws away the key. I was a king for a few years. But now, I'm nothing. A number in a system. A forgotten name. And in 20 years, nobody will remember Blueface Dre. Nobody will remember the parties, the money, the chains, the power. All they'll remember is another young man who died in prison. Final words. I'm writing this from my cell. It's late. The lights are dim. I can hear other inmates snoring, coughing, muttering in their sleep. This is my world now. If I could go back, would I do things differently? Yeah, I would. I'd tell that 12-year-old kid on 60th Street to stay in school, to ignore Big Zo, to find another way. But I can't go back. None of us can. All I can do is sit here and tell my story. And hope that maybe, just maybe, some young kid out there hears it and makes a different choice. Because the streets don't love you. The money doesn't last. The power is an illusion. And in the end, everyone betrays you. Even blood. My name is Andre Blueface Dre Williams. I was the king of South Central. And now I'm serving life without parole in a federal penitentiary. This is my confession. This is my truth. This is the price I paid for a dream that was never real. The end. Nadur Sadio Epilogue. Where are they now? Marcus Lilmar Johnson. Released in 2019 after serving 8 years. Currently lives in witness protection under a new identity. Rumored to be in the Midwest. Keisha Williams. Andre's younger sister. Graduated college, became a social worker helping at-risk youth in South Central. Teresa Williams. Andre's mother. Still lives in South Central. Visits her son once a year at Victorville. K-Lock. Released in 2021, returned to Los Angeles. Died in a car accident in 2023. C-Bone. Released in 2023, currently on parole, works at a warehouse in Compton. Agent Carson. Retired from the DEA, received a commendation for his work on the case. Andre Blueface Dre Williams. Inmate number 8749311, USP Victorville, life without parole, no release date. I thought I was writing my legacy. Turns out I was just writing my obituary. Andre Williams, from prison, 2024.